In my last video, I set up tubeless Maxxis tires on OneUp carbon rims to kick off building my 2023 Stumpjumper EVO S-Works dream bike. In this video, I'll be installing a 2025 Fox 36 factory fork, OneUp Components Carbon Bars and Stem, and sharing some major mistakes to avoid along the way. I chose the 2025 Fox 36 factory fork with 160mm of travel for its perfect balance of control, stability, and versatility. The extra travel smooths out rough descents, absorbs big hits, and gives me more confidence on technical terrain. It's adjustable so I can fine-tune the ride for climbing and descending. The high-end features like the Grip 2 damper and Kashima coating offer precision and durability for long demanding rides. Plus, the 160mm of travel helps slacken my bike's geometry for added stability on steep sections. The tools you'll need for this install include a ruler with millimeters, carbon fiber saw, a Park Tool saw guide, a file, a vise, a bike fork star nut setting tool, a hammer, a strap to hold the fork, grease, 4mm and 5mm heck wrench, and a torque wrench. The bike parts you'll need are a 2025 Fox 36 factory fork, headset top cap with compression bolt, star nut, OneUp Component 35mm stem, spacers, top cover assembly, compression ring, upper bearing, plus or minus 1 degree angle adjust upper headset cup for 1/8 bearing, which you'll see in a moment, spherical adapter for 1.5 lower bearing, which you'll also see shortly, lower bearing, tapered tube fork crown, and OneUp component handlebars. On the left we have the plus or minus 1 degree angle adjust headset cup. This lets you tweak your bike's geometry, making it either steeper or slacker depending on your preference. Not shown here is the zero offset headset cup, which keeps your bike in a neutral position if that's what you prefer. For this build, I'm planning on making the bike slacker. Over on the right is a spherical adapter for the 1.5-inch lower bearing. This piece is absolutely crucial, and you'll see why by the end of the video. The first step is to temporarily install the dropper post so I can secure the bike on the stand. If you're planning on doing any maintenance on your bike, a good bike stand, like this one I'm using here, is an absolute must. The first thing you want to do is add grease to the top and the bottom of your frame. Next you'll want to install the crown and the lower bearing. With this type of crown you don't need to hit it into place. However, there's a crucial step I missed here. Later in the video I'll show you the major mistake I made so you can avoid it yourself. Let me know in the comments if you've made this same mistake before. Now I add grease to the crown and the lower bearing. Next I'll install the plus or minus 1 degree angle adjust upper headset cup. If you're aiming for a 1 degree slacker angle, make sure to position the thicker side of the headset cup towards the front. I made a mistake here by doing the opposite, which I later corrected. As I've installed it now, the bike is set up for a steeper 65.5 degree angle, which is not what I wanted. The Stumpjumper EVO's neutral head tube angle is 64.5 degrees. This illustration shows how the head tube angle changes from slacker to steeper. For a slacker head tube angle, like 63.5 degrees, the bottom of the red line moves forward towards the front of the bike. For a steeper head tube angle, like 65.5 degrees, it moves backward towards the rear of the bike. A slacker head tube angle provides better stability and control when descending, making it ideal for enduro or downhill bikes. On the other hand, a steeper head tube angle is better suited for climbing, which is typical for XC bikes. A neutral head tube angle strikes a balance, making it perfect for trail bikes. Most riders would consider the Stumpjumper EVO a trail bike, but with the adjustable upper headset cup, I can tune it to feel more like an enduro bike. Personally, I prefer the added stability on descents over improved climbing performance. A slacker head tube angle not only feels more stable, but also in my experience, helps reduce the risk of going OTB, over the bars. At this point I'm temporarily fitting the fork so I can mark where to cut it. First thing I put on is the adjustable headset cup, then the fork, upper bearing, compression ring, washer, and top cover assembly. As you can see, I've added an orange strap to keep the fork from falling. I compress everything with a rubber mallet. You want to compress everything as much as possible before marking. I had several spacers below the stem and one more on top. Using extra spacers ensures the fork steer tube isn't cut too short. I tighten one bolt to keep it in place, then mark the steer tube with a saw. During my research, I learned you should cut the steer tube 3 millimeters below your original mark. This allows the headset top cap and compression bolt to properly engage with the star nut, keeping the fork securely compressed. I secure the fork steer tube in the vise using the Park Tools saw guide. I carefully align it with a 3 millimeter mark, then I start cutting. As you can see, the cut wasn't perfectly straight, so I'm using a file to smooth it out and even the edges. This is the star nut which goes inside the steer tube to hold the fork together. Now I use the fork star nut setting tool to insert the star nut into the steer tube. I hammer it down until it's completely flat. I recommend using a regular hammer instead of a rubber mallet. It's much quicker and more effective. Once it's done, you might need a wrench to unscrew the bolt. Right here is where I make a crucial mistake. Later in the video I'll explain the big mistake and how to correct it. As you can see, the orange strap keeps the fork in place, and now I assemble all the parts and tighten down the top cap and stem. Now I install the handlebars. Start by centering and adjusting everything, then tighten the bolts evenly using a hex wrench. After that, I use a torque wrench to tighten them to the recommended torque settings, typically between 5 to 8 Newton meters, depending on your stem and handlebar specifications. After your first ride, you'll most likely need to adjust your handlebars to find the position that feels best for you. At this point, the top cap doesn't feel like it's compressing the headset enough, so I add another spacer on the top to help with the compression. However, the major mistake I made earlier is likely the main reason for this issue. Despite the mistake, I'm able to get the fork to compress enough. Finally, I tighten the bolts on the back of the stem to the proper torque settings, which is 9 Newton meters. Now let me show you the major mistake I made and how you can avoid it when building your fork. When I installed the tapered fork crown and lower bearing, I forgot a crucial component. None of the Stumpjumper EVO Dream Build videos I watched clearly showed this part being installed. The crucial part I missed during the installation is a spherical adapter for 1.5-inch lower bearing. Without it, the lower bearing was rubbing directly against the frame. This can cause significant damage to your carbon frame over time. I noticed the fork didn't feel as smooth as it should, but I couldn't figure out why. In this next part of the video, I'll explain how I learned the fork was installed incorrectly and show you the proper way to fix it. It's a good thing I didn't finish this fork installation video before catching the major mistake I made. So it turns out that I actually installed the fork wrong on this bike. I found that out at Angel Fire when I went to get my brakes fixed at the shop at Angel Fire Bike Park, and the tech there told me that the headset was missing a coupling or a piece that holds the bearings together. So I was lucky I didn't get hurt. I still rode the bike there because I didn't want to rent another bike, and I was fine. But now we're gonna fix the bike. So let's see if we can add this coupling, the one that I just showed you. Okay, here we go. So this is the piece that I forgot to put on. It's called the spherical adapter 1.5 lower bearing. This holds the bearing in place and it goes under the frame. So I don't know if you can tell, this is the bearing, and the bearing is supposed to go in here like so, like that. I did 17 rides on this bike just with the bearing inside the frame. So hopefully my frame is not damaged. So now I'm just gonna clean this up and I'm going to grease it up and put it back on. Okay. Let's get it right here. Okay, now we're going to check the bottom of the frame to see if I caused any damage by doing this install incorrectly. So let's check it out. So this is the bottom of the frame. It doesn't look like there's any damage to the frame here. So let me see if I can get another angle. It looks okay. So now I want to put grease there, and then I'll reinstall the fork. Okay, let's put the fork back on. Okay, now I'm going to line up the bars. So I'm going to put the wheel back on to help me line it up. Alright, I think that looks pretty good, so now I'm going to tighten it down. I've got my torque wrench set to 9 Newton meters. I don't know if you can see that. And I'm just going to tighten this here. Alright, as you can see right here, I also cleaned up the headset by adding this large spacer. I had this, I don't know if you can see, I had this one on, but it's not necessary because this other one below here was already on, so I was doing the same thing. So I just got the spacer, which is a spacer like this size, and it just goes right there. So cleans it up a bit from when I first installed the fork. Alright, well, that's it. The fork is installed properly. So hopefully you stay tuned for the next videos of installing the rest of the bike. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more adventures.